Thanks for joining us this morning as we review Dune Universe that Frank Herbert created for his epic tale of the Messiah from the desert planet. We're going to look specifically at the religion of Dune, otherwise known as...
Hey, where are all the Christians at?
Yeah, something seems to be missing in this mixture. Is it just me complaining? Am I just a little bit, oh man, come on, put a little bit of Christ in here? Or is there something a little bit more under the covers? Well, to really look at that, we have to look deep under the covers of Dune, all the religions that are there, to find out, is there something going on here? Is there something, am I missing something? Is there really an element that's in there that I don't see? But as are Christians part of Dune, are Christians really part of Frank Herbert's vision of the future in Dune? If so, where are they? If not, why? This is a part 2 of a 3-part series that explores the Dune universe. On March 1st this year, a mere 10 days from today, the second half of the Warner Brothers theatrical rendition of Dune will hit the theaters. And we wanted to give you something to talk about, tools to defend and share your faith. So we took a poll. Who is your favorite character? And before I bring up the poll, I'm going to ask you, we've got Paul, we have Duke Leto, we have Lady Jessica, and we have Duncan Idaho. Which of those is your favorites and why?
I'd probably go with Duncan Idaho.
Okay. Why is that?
I did on the poll too.
You did on the poll. You did both. Okay, so you put that in. Now, why would
I do that? Because I like how his character, how he's portrayed. I think he's one of the more noble characters in the entire series.
Okay.
So.
And
what? That was it.
Okay.
There's not a lot to them.
Okay.
As far as nobility goes.
I'm begging for more because I am missing. I don't have that screen up. So
that would do it.
Yes, if you wouldn't mind hanging on there and adding a little bit more as I try to find that one screen.
If I would have known that, I would have had a dance routine ready to go.
Yes, go ahead. So why Duncan Idaho? What's up with Duncan Idaho?
He's loyal. He's a defender. He's able to stand there and he literally sacrifices himself for his master or his leader.
Okay.
In this case.
Yeah, you're talking about the Dune, God Emperor of Dune, where he...
No,
you're talking about the first...
I'm talking about this one.
Okay.
In the first movie that's, part 1.
Yes, he sacrifices himself for Paul Atreides. Okay, so here is the poll. And as you see, the winner of the poll was by far Duke Leto. So
I can see why.
And why do you think that he came out as on top?
Fatherly role, definitely in the latest movie, he was portrayed much better than in a lot of other situations. I mean, in the book, he's really not. I don't know how well he's shown in the book as being a fatherly role. I mean, he's shown that he basically walks into this trap.
Yeah, in the book, it was, and also Paul just basically follows in his role as a dutiful son, doing what the Duke's son should do, and as royalty is fulfill his role. In the movie, there's a lot of apprehension, a lot of concern, and Duke Leto takes more of a fatherly role to it. So now tonight, before we get started, I wanted to announce that I will be premiering a special edition of the Council of Absurdia at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, this is because the first time we tried this, we had technical problems and we're not able to get the skit shown, the video shown. So I'm gonna republish this tonight, and it really needed to be done because the skit really works with the rest of the message that goes there. And this was where
So this was our review of the skit,
basically. This is right. Our review of the Council of Nicaea, which the skit was used as a basis for. So 6 o'clock, we're going to do that, and hopefully we'll get a good response on that one. So, Religion of Dune. If you have read any of the books of the Dune series, you'll notice that religion and politics play a real central role in the series. You might also notice that Christianity is mostly missing, and I would say entirely missing. So what? This is 20,000 years in the future. Christianity is only 2,000 years old right now and has already changed a lot. Imagine what the Christian religion would look like when it's 5, 10 times its current age.
Hasn't changed.
That's right. Has it changed that much, though?
According to the writings of a lot of the pagans around Christians.
Yeah, so we really do. Now, in the rituals have solidified over the centuries, but the core doctrines are still held by most Christians. You'll have some fringe groups that don't believe the core practices, but for the most part, it really hasn't changed over 2,000 years. And so even though we're looking at 20,000 years into the future, another 10 times as much as what Christianity has already had, I would say that there would be all sorts of different sects and things like that. But if Jesus doesn't return, I don't think that Christianity is really going to be all that weird. And what happened here with all these major religions, Frank Herbert was saying, well, once you advance beyond the earth, then things will change. These religions would have to adapt. Now, I will say that there is a couple of things that we would have to adapt to, especially if we run into aliens. But one of the things that you would have to adapt to would be when God said, be fruitful and multiply, he's talking about the earth. Would that be just the earth itself, or would that
be all creation?
All creation. So there are some things that we would have to adjust for that, but that is so minor. And you could look at that and say, well, is he just talking about a physical location, or is he talking about his creation at large? So other religions have also changed in Frank Herbert's Dune. But what we see in his vision of the future as he's going is that there are two that really stand out. The two of the major religions we have today. And what would you say that those two religions are?
Oh, I'd say probably three, actually. But you have Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity in some regard. The Orange Catholic Bible.
In Dune.
In Dune, yes.
Absolutely not. I would have to vehemently disagree with you. Because, as I'll show you, the Orange Catholic Bible has practically no Christianity.
That's what he's claiming in this. That's what he took in order to try to fit into this world. Yeah,
but it's not.
I know it's not, and I know there's a lot.
So what I'm asking,
Islam is not really the same, and Buddhism is not really the same either.
But okay, no. So in terms of religion that's left over, there is a lot of remnant of Islam, and there is a lot of remnants of Zen Buddhism that are there. They're not strictly held or practiced within Dune. But of Christianity, what core tenets of Christianity are there?
Okay, if that's what you're asking, none.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So, and we'll look at each one of these that are there, and I'll show you that there's really, as far as the vestments of Christianity, there's a couple of names that are used. That's it. There's really nothing that is left. So we have. This up here. Let's take a closer look at the religious groups, the religious elements, and the role of religion in Dune. Before I do that, I want to take a look to see if we have anything in terms of the chats. We have a couple of hi y'alls. Is that the movie, the show, the series, film, sequels? We're looking at this is everything together. So not so much, maybe somewhat of the prequels too, but I'm looking primarily at Frank Herbert's Dune, of the 6 books that he had, the movies that came out afterwards, both the there's an image right there from the 1984 movie, and then the newest one that's come out as well. So the religious groups in the Dune universe, there's several religious groups or belief systems that play significant roles in shaping the societies and cultures of the Imperium. And I want to mention like 4 of them here. What you mentioned earlier, the Orange Catholic religion. This is the official religion of the realm at the start of the Dune series. There is no specific organization, not one specific church that follows this. And it's based on the OC Bible, the Orange Catholic Bible. In the words of Captain Barbossa, the pirate, the Orange Catholic Bible is more like guidelines as opposed to anything strictly adhered to. Despite its name, the Orange Catholic religion in the Orange Catholic Bible has nothing to do with Roman Catholicism, but rather it uses the word Catholic in a general sense, meaning that it's a universal thing, that it's universally held by most of the people in the realm. The origins. Now, it emerged as a response from the Butlerian Jihad, the war against the artificial intelligence, the machines that happened 10,000 years before this. In the wake of the Jihad, the Orange Catholic Bible was created to provide a common moral and ethical framework for humanity, uniting disparate cultures and beliefs for a single religious authority. It's a religious text. The Orange Catholic Bible is a compilation of religions and belief systems throughout human history, major religions, and that had contributed to this Bible were the Mamawth Sa'ari. This is an Islamic derivative religion. The Mayama Christianity. This is a mix of Buddhism and Christianity, emphasizing universal compassion, altruism, and salvation for all. Basically, it's liberal Christianity plus Buddhism. Zen Sunni Catholicism, a mix of Buddhism, Sunni Islam, Catholicism, and it's the basis for the religion of the Fremen. But if you look at it, any reference to anything Christian in what the Fremen do is merely symbolic. Maybe they have an image or a symbol of a cross. That's really about it. And the Islamic traditions would be the 4th one, and that's a mix of Buddhism and Islam, focusing on mindfulness, detachment, as well as Islamic rituals, prayers, and beliefs. So the tenets of the Orange Catholic religion emphasizes the importance of human agency, self-reliance, and the sanctity of life. It rejects artificial intelligence and technology by means of control over domination, advocating the preservation of human dignity and autonomy through logic, reason, and mystic determinism. Orange Catholic religion is a humanistic religion. That's it. I mean, if you were to create a religion without God, a religion without any of the tenets of Christianity at all, or in something that's universal for everybody, it's a universal religion. You're pulling everything in and you wash Christ out of it. This is basically what it would look like. Is there anything that you would think that maybe in the future that this might be a goal of any particular group that would want to have something like this? Atheism?
I think this comes out of his views of religion in general.
Yeah.
Because again, this is just the whole point of religion in his mindset is just to control the stupid masses. Basically, that's it. Just use them as control so they can be pointed towards something and fired.
That's right.
Using them basically or some sort of equipment.
So he is wrapped up. We'll touch on this in a bit. The role of religion in the Dune series. In the author's mind, religion is just a tool of politics. It's just another arm of politics. Like politics might have taxation, politics might have an army. Government might have an army to be able to enforce its rules and so forth. And also religion is a means to pacify the masses. That's part of it as well. I'm going to put up a comment here before we move on to talk a little bit more about the Orange Catholic religion. Sounds like futurism, Christian and secular ecumenism. Yeah, I would say. And what would you have to scrub out of Christianity to make it this universal religion?
Christ.
Okay. Why is it? Well, Jesus says some very nice things. He says some very loving things about, loving your neighbor and being kind. Doesn't it say somewhere in the New Testament to just be kind to everyone and things like that? So, yeah,
it doesn't say be kind to everyone. It says love them.
That's right.
Quite rough.
There is a big difference between the two, because sometimes when you're loving, you're not very kind. And Baha'i faith came out of Islam and took it even further. Yes. How do you pronounce it? Baha'i? Yeah, I remember that. That was I'm sure that most Muslims really embrace this as an ideology and say that this really is the true faith. Sorry, I'm mocking a little bit. We are really nerds. Yes. Well, we're trying to dissect this to find out where, the movie's coming out. People are going to be talking about it, and things are coming up. Think about one of the central characteristics of Dune is this concept of a Messiah. How do we relate to that? Where does that all go? How could we use that as a point of talking to people? And then agnosticism and deism. I guess you would say that these are godless religions. I don't know if I say
are.
Gnosticism would be, though.
Well, like the Orange Catholic Bible, it has a deity, but at no point do they ever refer to this deity very much.
No, that's correct.
All in the movies or in the books.
Right.
It's more of a vague concept that's just emulating there.
Yes. So let's go over that right now. That would be the next thing. Thank you. Good segue for that. The deity of the Orange Catholic religion, Buddha Allah is the name of the deity, sometimes mentioned. But he's not really. It is not really well defined. I've heard someone say that Buddha Allah is a supreme being of a male, female, and neuter trinity, but I have not found anything to support this. The Fremen referred to their deity as the Great Mother. And the role in this series, like what you said, the Orange Catholic religion plays a significant role in the Dune series, influencing the cultural and moral values of the society within the Imperium. It serves as a backdrop from which the other religions spring, and especially Zen Sudi religion. Now, the Bene Gesserits, they would be another one. Now, they really don't have a religion, but they act religiously. They really don't have a relationship with God. The origins of the Bene Gesserits are not directly inspired by any present-day major religion, but draw on various philosophical, mystical, esoteric traditions, including elements of Gnosticism, Eastern mysticism, and occultism. they do not have any deities. They do not worship a specific deity, but instead adhere to a complex system of beliefs and practices aimed at achieving their goals, including the breeding of the Kwisatz Haderach, which we'll get into more later. Now, the role that the Bene Gesserit play in the series is they're a secretive sisterhood with considerable influence on the Imperium, and they're known for their expertise in politics, espionage, and manipulation. They use their abilities and knowledge to shape events and bloodlines, working towards their long-term goals. Now, the Bene Gesserit use religion as a tool. They're not religious. They sound religious. They act like, I don't know, nuns, scary space nuns that dabble in witchcraft. That's what they kind of seem like. But they use religion as a tool for religious engineering. They manipulate the beliefs of others and seed myths, legends, and religious prophecies across the universe in a secretive program called the Missionaria Protectiva. Where do you see Jesus in all this?
You don't.
You
I already said that's what you got to do. You got to take Jesus out of it. It's
yeah.
literally their Trinity that they took from Christianity that they have theirs. You know, they have the Holy Mother, they have the dude version, and they have the non-gender, non-binary individual.
Yes. Yeah. So it's sucking Jesus Christ out of Christianity. You've removed him. You erased him out of Christianity. You have maybe some handful of generic tenets that everybody else believes anyway, and then put that in with everybody else's beliefs, mix it in, and you really have this Zen Buddhism that binds everything together and holds it, with Islam kind of raising to the top, at least in some practices and in some names and some kind of feeling and expectation. You have a lot of that happening in the background, but Jesus is definitely not a part of the picture. I don't think you ever hear his name mentioned in all of in their big books, any of the books at all.
Even then, even the Islam, there's not a lot of the core tenets there either.
Correct.
I mean, they don't talk about Muhammad.
No,
they don't talk about. They don't do the Hajj.
That's true.
They don't do their 5 daily prayers.
But they do pray a lot.
They pray a lot, but they don't do. It's not the ritualistic sort of prayer. I got to do it at this time. You don't hear the call of prayer or anything like that.
Yeah, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put something up, and I don't know if I'm going to get hit for this or not, but I'm going to add something to that. Of what aspects of Islam do you see in Dune?
Some sort of deserty religion with Messiah/prophet.
Okay, and what in Islam, what role does a Messiah or a future Messiah play?
That's an awfully good question. And it's a very complicated answer. Because you have the concept of Muhammad coming back one day, but it'll be quite some time in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You have the concept of the Dajjal coming, the false prophet, to eventually come and rise up. And man, that gets weird once you start looking into that. He's got like one eye, and he's got like a tattoo on his forehead, and really odd. All in all. But again, yeah, those are aspects that aren't in the sort of Islamic view that Frank Herbert had. Okay.
So he really missed the mark on that part.
Well, what my point is, he gutted. Again, I don't think he had a grasp on any of these religions, really.
Really kind of a surface.
He knew a general thing is like, I could use this way.
Right.
So let me grab it, use it this way and paint it as if it was the actual thing.
Okay. So this is, I believe, a scene from the new Dune. I don't think this was in the. I don't believe this was in the part 1. This might be an aspect of part 2. And just getting a general sense of this.
This wasn't in the book. Yeah, I don't think this was in the book either. This is somebody added.
Right.
That sort of prayer thing.
Right. So you kind of have a sense of there is a with the desert motif. It looks Islamic.
And now we did have a point out in the comments there. Yes, jihad. He uses that. He also uses, at least the son uses the crusade concept. He uses jihad concept. Definitely jihad in the original books, because that's what they do. They go out on this great jihad across the universe, leading to the death of millions.
Right. So he uses the term jihad, which is Islamic term for holy war.
Yes.
And they do have a holy war that is actually very key in the Dune series, because
I'd say that's probably where he got the closest, actually, all in all, to the whole let's go out and conquer the world thing, or in this case, the universe.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe the closest thing to Islam.
Okay, so I'm going to look at a couple more comments here we have, because I think that you guys are starting to pour them in. Perhaps we should be doing a better job explaining what the Messiah and his role is to the rest of the world. Seems like a big difference between us and other religions.
Yeah, that comes into it definitely when it comes to Islam, because Islam has the concept of the Messiah. Jesus is the Messiah in Islam. Just no reason why. No purpose for him to fulfill. He just is the Messiah. He's also perfect and sinless too, but there's no reason why where Muhammad had to have his sins forgiven for the past and present, yet he's the example for all mankind.
Right. Yeah. So this, I think you really hit the nail on the head here, Thomas, with this, because so Dune is using these religious terms in a way that presents us an opportunity to say, hey, what do they mean by Messiah? What does a Messiah really do? So let's take a moment real quickly and go over that. The term Messiah is the Greek term for, you have the term Christ is the Greek term for Messiah. Christos, it means anointed one. The idea of Messiah is that you have a person who is anointed for a certain task. And the idea of anointing is that we're marking you for this role. And it was either a kingly or a priestly role. In this regard, the Messiah is the root of Jesse, the descendant of David, who was their best king, is going to come and restore the people. And the hope is looking forward to this basically national redeemer who is going to bring back hope, bring back the prosperity, bring back the nationhood that is there. And that is still to happen in the future with that. But there is a much bigger picture that Jesus fulfilled in releasing us not from political tyranny like the Roman governments or whoever was holding sway over Israel at the time. But the bigger picture is sin that holds us all in captivity. And so you have the picture from the political side or the nationalistic side of him being the anointed as a Messiah. You also have him as the lamb that was slain, which is not in Islam at all, right? No concept of sacrifice, which was a big part of Judaism. So if we look and put our hope in somebody in the future, some political savior that's going to bring us out of whatever particular mess that we have, that's a really good message to bring to people. So you just put up not yet. Okay. So we're going to add the link to, if you guys want to jump online to give your comments in person. Sometimes it's a little hard to follow what's going on here in the chat, and this way we can pick it up quicker.
Now, there's some interesting things to focus on that. For example, the line of David, Jesse being in the line of being the father to David and being in that line. You have Jessica here who gives birth to Paul. Right. So you have that sort of loose try to tie in. There's it's very clear that Frank Herbert did not respect religion. He didn't think that any of the religions that we currently have out there are even close to being true. He thought they're no more than just a means to an end.
Right.
Just like any other tool that's out there, they can be used responsibly or they can be mishandled. And it's not that there's an actual God or deity. It's just that society in general can be used and guided one way or the other, just like politics or anything else along those lines. And that's all it is.
It's a tool of power.
Yeah.
Those in power have the ability to wield it and do a very cynical view. And this is why we talked last week about the difference between Frank. I have a lot of respect for Frank Herbert as an author. He's a great world builder. He had built this world, this universe of Dune. It's very complex and very intricate. And another author who built a very intricate world would be J.R.R. Tolkien. And they're sort of like these paragons of two different genres, one of science fiction and the other fantasy. And their particular worldview was different, was entirely different. And there is hope and light in the midst of darkness within J.R.R. Tolkien's universe. Here you just have power being manipulated by those in charge. And it's a warning about how things can be abused, whether it's politics, religion, or whatever. And it's a fair warning, I think. But it's very dark and just humanistic. Again, God has been just pulled right out of the entire picture. And you end up with this dark, humanistic dystopia that ends up happening. So Jared, I believe, had a comment here. The great disappointment of the end of book 1 was that Paul ignores any moral obligation to the Fremen or his wife in exchange for political power.
Yeah. And that's it. That's a whole concept that Frank Herbert's putting out. It's always this pursuit of power. It's a very secular worldview.
Right.
This entire world is set up that the pursuit of power is the best thing you can do.
Right. And those who wield power, if anything, Christ, what did Christ say about power? Those who wield power.
Well, he said the least would be the greatest. And the greatest
he's going to flip it, right?
Yeah.
And also that we are to be servants, that those in charge are to serve others. And even in the church, you have Ephesians 4:11 that he makes some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers for the equipping of the church, the people, to do the ministry. These guys aren't to do the ministry on top. It's the people. They're to equip. They're the coaches. They get people going, and the people do the ministry. And we get things flipped upside down all the time. And maybe the Dune Universe is a good example of when you do have things flipped upside down, how things get abused like that.
I think Frank Herbert did us an accidental service. I think by taking everything to the logical conclusion as he has, his worldview, that concept of religion just being used for political power, for power over the masses, it led to a very dark world.
Yeah.
There's really no hope. I mean, the point of the best character in that, the main protagonist, the person we're supposed to be rooting for at the end, takes political power over his wife, over the people he promised to lead. It doesn't look good.
No.
It is not a good person. And I think even in the poll itself that he put out, the people that had the most screen time were not the ones that were most liked.
You're
How much the more time he spent developing the individual, the less they seem to be liked, according to that poll.
true.
Because you had Paul on there, you had Leto, you had Paul,
Lady Jessica.
Lady Jessica. Paul and Jessica are the two that have the most.
They do. This is an
influence.
order of screen time. So Paul had the most. Lady Jessica had the next. Duke Leto had the third amount of screen time, and then Duncan. He didn't have. There are other people that had more screen time than him, but I knew he was a favorite, so I put him in there.
Just looking at this though, if you pull that back up, Duke Leto was really not trying to pursue power. He was more watching his family, guiding his family, trying to protect his family.
Yeah, but and this is such a hard balance. I mean, he was put into this position of being in charge of Dune, and then that itself, the Fremen are just being railroaded in this whole situation.
Yeah,
by the Imperium.
He was trying to make inroads with
That's
the Fremen.
True. That's true.
It's not that he asked for this assignment. He was forced into this by the Emperor.
That's true. And the Harkonnen, and they had their own reasons. It was a big setup, right?
And he seemed to really care for the people of Caladan, the original world they were on before they moved.
Yes,
he seemed to genuinely care about them and be focused on them.
No, maybe he's the best, most noble character, and Lady Jessica's pretty good too. But I mean, he's probably the most noble out of all of them. Maybe
Lady Jessica does a lot
Duncan
of sort
Idaho
of manipulation behind the scenes, sort of backstabby. Definitely later on in the book.
True.
It's kind of ew.
So James had a good comment here. You're half right that Islamic Jesus seems to have no reason to him, but Muhammad needed to piggyback off of the influence, considering that the Arab Christians were prominent at the time.
Well, that's what you see a lot in the Quran and in the Hadith. I mean, there are multiple Hadith where he's just definitely earlier on, he's playing to the Jews and the Christians, and then the Jews reject him, and then they're bad people. And then the Christians reject them. And then you get Quran 98:6, which says that the Jews and the Christians and the polytheists are the worst of creatures. They will be forever abiding in hell. I'm paraphrasing, not direct quote on that one. But it does specifically say that they are the worst of creatures.
So would it be right to say then that Frank Herbert's use of religion as a tool is basically what Muhammad was doing?
Oh, yeah.
Is this not true Islam here?
It was very Muhammadi, not the teachings or the tenets that he put forth. I mean, for pity's sakes, the women walk around and their faces are uncovered, so definitely not. But as far as using religion for political as well as personal gain, yes, that is exactly what Muhammad did in the end. He was looking at how to do it. And you can see the development. If you look historically at the Quran and the Hadith, you see the development of, I'm trying to placate. There are the satanic verses. He's trying to placate to the polytheists about the holy cranes, the three holy cranes that are divine in nature, that carry your prayers to Allah. And then he had to backtrack that because he's like, oh, shoot, that's not... it's not monotheism anymore. I gotta undo that. It was Satan who gave me those verses.
Okay.
Couldn't tell the difference.
Funny how it all comes together like that. I'm going to put this comment up. I'm not sure if I fully understand it. Glass clean from outside, empty from inside. I did not say what to say with this analogy. Herbert pick up everything from outside, and from inside, no deity. You are correct. He's empty in regards to the deity that's there.
It's just skin coating.
Correct.
As far as what the religions are.
Just really. Totally on the surface. Just just pick here and there whatever sounds good and bind it all together with Buddhism. Did Herbert discuss, Thomas Hall said, did Herbert discuss his method for creating? For Tolkien, he claimed he was just bringing forth what was coming to him. For others, like Nabokov, I'm guessing this is a Russian science fiction author. I don't know. That was abhorrent. He was master of his ideas. I'm not familiar with him, so you probably have to explain that a little bit more. So the main question that you're asking here, did Herbert discuss his method for creating? I don't know. I haven't. I did read, there's a book out called The Road to Dune, talking about the development of Dune. It all started from, he was a reporter, and it started with the concept of dunes in the northwest. I think either Washington State or Oregon, and talking about the encroachment of dunes that are happening. There's bad ecology, that there's destruction to nature, and you have this growing desert situation that came up. By the way, we should all be, according to some theorists of ecology, we should all be covered practically by dunes right now with global warming. However, it's kind of gone the opposite effect, that the Sahara and other great deserts have greened. In fact, they've greened so much, I think the greening effect is about the size of the United States. So quite a bit with increased CO2. It's not quite worked out their way, but it was an impetus for him to write this story. And you could see how much ecology has an influence in what's going on with Dune. Another comment here from Jared, an interesting observation to Herbert from the most recent reread of the series is increasing importance of sex in the series as progresses towards its conclusion. And
Absolutely.
Yes, we'll talk if we ever get to it, because I mean, there's a good discussion, but I do have some things I want to talk about in the elements of religion in Dune: sex, drugs, and sandworms. And as a voice out of the 60s, you can imagine that would be it, minus the rock and roll. And so that's a big part of it there. And you add, what you would think that an aging man would de-emphasize sex in favor of other moral virtues, but it was sad to see a glimpse into his fallen hope of Frank Herbert. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And Adam said, why haven't I read this series and won't sex? That's why I haven't read this series and won't. Sex is extremely important. Many, if not all, the pagan religions as a form of worship, i.e. temple prostitutes. God was and is very angry about this issue. And I'd agree 100%, because you're turning sex around. Sex is primarily for the procreation of the species. Second, it's as a binding between the husband and wife. And it's also as an illustration of God is showing us part of himself in here. We can do something that the enemy cannot do. And I believe that's why Satan attacks sex as much as it can, other than it being one of the primary drives in our lives as well. If he wants to manipulate something, it's a good thing to manipulate. But he can't do that. He cannot create an eternally spiritual being. We can, through the power of God and through the ability that he gave us in sex. So that's just like primary target for him. Definitely, Jared answered that. So definitely, I don't recommend the latest couple books. I would not read them again. I noticed that the audiobook author obviously refused to read one specific chapter, and someone else had to fill it in. Wow. I did. Is this chapter House Dune? In it was Scott
I think
Brick.
he's referring to the in the original section of books, because he does get more and more.
Well, the chapter house would be, I believe, was the last one.
Yeah, he gets more and more sexual as it progresses.
Yeah. By the way, when we do these reviews, we're not necessarily suggesting that you go out, run out and watch or do this. In fact, there was one movie that we were going to review. We each watched it individually and came to the same conclusion that, we're going to pass on this. And it's a matter of discernment to figure this out, how to do this.
Now, we're pointing to Dune as an example. It's at least the original book itself. Sex does not play that big of a role as it does later on. So, but it is a good example of what the conclusion is of secular living and secular ideology in a lot of ways. I think it's a good example of the dark and hopeless future that it offers.
Yeah, and a misuse of one of the greatest gifts that God gave us.
Yes.
Too. So, a twisting and inverting. And we also see this in The Matrix. There was the second Matrix movie. It was like almost like a Dune Fremen orgy type of thing going on there too. So yeah, I definitely say, you know what? Go ahead and talk to people about this. The images that are here, the question of Messiah, the question of the role of religion and politics and so forth. That'd be great. I agree with you 100%. Skip the rest of this stuff. It's just not worth it. You're talking about this scene with young General, can't remember his name. Okay, so we don't know exactly where that is. So there's a couple more things about the organizations of religion I want to touch on, and then I'm going to go into the mechanics of it, of which you guys have already started talking about. Spacing Guild, the origins of the Spacing Guild. The Spacing Guild really doesn't have a religion, but they have a reverence for the spice melange as it parallels with historical and contemporary society's attitudes towards psychedelic substances and their perceived mystical and transformative properties. The Spacing Guild does not have any specific entities, but reveres the spice melange as a sacred substance. And this is important for them because they're controlling all interstellar travel. They're probably one of the key groups that help hold everything together. Then you have the Sardaukar. This image of the Sardaukar right here they really don't, it's not really specified what religion they have, but you get the impression that they do have something. The Sardaukar are the elite and highly trained soldiers of the Padishah Emperor, and they are loyal servants. They are his loyal servants, primarily focused on carrying out his orders to a T, exactly as he says. It's unclear what religion they follow, but it appears that they have a quasi-mystical devotion to their cause and draw on elements of Zen Sunni philosophy and warrior mysticism. Finally, the Fremen, these guys, running away from spice worms. Their origins go back to wandering through the universe until they come to Dune, and they were governed. Their religion was the Zen Sunni religion, so a mixture of Buddhism and Islam. But they started mixing the two. They mix it with elements of animism, folklore, nature worship, to include the worship of the sandworms on their planet, known as Shai-Hulud. And it's a very Arabic sounding word. I don't know if that was derived from an Arabic word or not. They viewed the sandworms as the source of life and the creators of spice. And they also believed of a coming of Messiah. And this is heavily influenced by the Bene Gesserit and their Missionaria Projectiva program, and getting the seeds of the Kwisatz Haderach coming, so that when Paul takes his seat among them, the Bene Gesserit have set it up to say, hey, everybody's going to follow this guy. Actually, they expected a woman to be the Kwisatz Haderach, and lo and behold, Paul is there. So, religious elements, and this is where we get the sex, drugs, and sandworms.
Yep.
In the Dune series, the religious elements for the characters show up in particular ways. very characteristic of the 1960s. And before I delve into that, I'm going to look at a couple of the comments here and see what you guys had to say about this, because we are going to get into some very mystic, psychedelic territory and see where religion goes when you take Jesus out and put drugs in. Sex, drugs, and sandworms. I just love the Dune world so much. I wish I could delve into it. It's just a point of personal disappointment for me. Yeah, there really is a mystique that he's created here.
Yeah, again, my favorite, actually, out of all the books, my favorite would be the first three. Not the prequels.
Oh, the prequels.
Yeah, not the first three that he made. The first three as far as the prequels go, as well as Dune itself.
Okay, so this is, I don't know if you guys
just the first book.
So yeah, in the first book is a tome. It's and there wouldn't be, he had a very hard time getting published since it was so big too. And it's a little bit difficult to get through. But and just like Tolkien's books are a little bit difficult to get through also. But you have the
prequels.
The prequels with the names are the Butlerian Jihad, Machine Crusade,
Battle of Corn.
And these were written by Brian Herbert, Frank Herbert's son, and Kevin J. Anderson. They came out more recently, I would say 10, 15 years ago or so.
Yeah. Now they're definitely still from a secular mindset.
Yes.
There's still the godlessness that's in it. There's not the overwhelming amount of sexual influence as you see later on in Frank Herbert's books, though.
Right.
So you can still enjoy the environment without that concept.
Right. Right. Although my wife totally hated the first book when...
Yeah, well, there's some dark
scenes. It's a spoiler. I'm not going to say it. Something happened that she said, nope, I'm done.
And my wife was the same.
Yeah, she was the same too. Jared said, Herbert gave me a great joy of reading something much smarter than me, but also a great disappointment by the way the story arc progresses. And you mentioned also that we're dealing with some spoilers here, though. So heads up, guys, that he kind of painted himself into a corner.
I think looking at the books just overall, I think he had Dune Messiah, and God Emperor of Dune ready to go. I think those were concepts in his mind that he had that as the direction he was going. I don't think he had them all written, of course, but he had the basic outline and concepts ready to go. It's after that point that you really start seeing it just fall apart. And you really start seeing it go dark.
Right.
At that point, to where you end up with the last book, Chapter House of Dune. And it's very dark. It's very sexual. It's very obscure in a lot of ways. You end with, if memory serves, you end with them the main characters taking off in a ship with a couple of sandworms in it. And there's this old couple who materialize and throw some sort of net over the ship. And that's where he leaves it. And you're like, what drugs were you on when you finished this? I mean, that's the ending of this entire thing. And that was the last book written by him.
Yes.
So, at least the last one published.
Okay. So we have, I'm going to put, I got to kind of have to jump through the comments here because I need to keep the pace going. But Jared disagrees with this. And I love disagreement with us on things like this. The prequels, that's funny. I thought they were almost unreadably bad.
I thought they were actually pretty decent. They were more of a modern style.
Yeah, we need you to call in. We need you to call in and tell us why. We'll promise to be nice. But it wasn't universally accepted. Some people just look at him and say, okay, you guys are just writing on Brian's just writing on his dad's coattails, and people are just
I would say, again, it would be because of where Frank Herbert left it, that they had to go back. They had to have an explanation for why those people were able to throw this net over this entire
But they didn't
ship.
get to that until much later with it.
Well, they had to do the backstory before they could do
and
then they go back through and they do later writings on it. And again, their writings are a lot less sexual. They're a lot less perverted. They're much more tame. And again, in a more modern style. So it's different. It's a very different writing style from what the original. So if you're going into the prequels expecting the same sort of writing style that Frank Herbert had, you're going to be disappointed.
That's true. That's true. They were not
It's
trying
a lot
to
faster
be
pace.
like that.
It's a lot more get going.
Maybe not as in depth as what he had in things. So put this one in. I watched the Dune, and I do not know
Remake?
Piccadilly. I watched the Dune remake, and it's pretty much satanic. Of course, essentially it has a Messiah figure who has power, but I won't spoil anything. That's okay. We're in spoiler territory.
What do you mean by remake? Because to my knowledge, there's only 2 movies made, and there's only part 1 of the movie, right?
I think there's at least 4.
Oh, 4. Oh no, they did have the series and the Children of Dune.
They did right. SciFi channel. They did have that one, Children of Dune. Remember that one came out? That was a while back.
I don't know. The most recent one I didn't think was too bad. As far as that goes, I think there is opportunity to dive into that sort of concepts. But again, the Messiah concept is not a Christian Messiah concept.
No. And I am putting a spoiler warning up here that we are getting into this territory. So feel free to plug it in. These books have been around for a long time. And if anybody's, if they're new, and who knows where the movie's going to go. The movie might not be following the book. So if you're talking,
there's definitely some variants from the book so far.
Right. And at this time, I'd like to give a word to our sponsor, The Skeptic Zone, being shown tonight again at 6 p.m. This in its actual entirety and without the technical difficulties we had previously.
So this will be our review of it, though.
Yes.
It's not just the
It's
thing on sound.
it's not just the skit, but we're talking about the Council of Nicaea and some of the misconceptions concerning it. And the skit is the launch for it. Again, that is 6 o'clock tonight. We're going to be showing that. See if we get you guys checking that out. So comments here. You followed up and said there isn't really a good story about a story out there that doesn't take from biblical narrative.
That's true. A lot of the stories do take from biblical narrative, at least some aspect of it. I mean, the concept of a savior coming, sacrificing himself for a people or for individuals and saving them from some sort of catastrophe. Yes, that is definitely biblical. You also have the hero's journey.
Jared said, I would call in. This is exactly my wheelhouse, but I can't at the moment. Need to get back to work. Oh, bummer. Yes. Well, it depends on the time of day that since we're broadcasting around the world, you have all sorts of different time zones. We have people from Australia, people from Europe, people from all around that are calling in. So it's difficult to do the best time. We might be moving this to the evening around 6 p.m. It seems to be a better time in general, but we'll see how things go from there. So, religious elements, sex, drugs, and sandworms. So you have all these elements that are in here. You have these different religious aspects. In religion, you have orthodoxy and orthopraxy, the way things should be lived and the way things should be lived out. And so how are the religions lived out in Dune? Well, sex and worship. The Fremen, they inhabit the desert planet Arrakis, incorporate sexuality into their religious practices, particularly the ritual known as the Sietch or sand orgy. After ingesting the water of life, a narcotic, the Reverend Mother then transforms the poison of a worm into and changes it internally into a narcotic called the water of life. And this communal sexual activity serves as a form of worship, reinforcing the bonds of unity, fertility among the Fremen, symbolizing their connection to the natural world and their essence of life. So here's the thing, too. You see this in Near East religion during the time of the Kingdom of Israel. that you have these other Canaanite religions involved primarily in prosperity, doing some kind of ritual to make themselves prosperous. And in terms of an agricultural society, that is that their crops and their herds and flocks would be more fruitful. And the way you get your flocks and herds and crops to be more fruitful is you have sex. And you do it ritualistically up in the mountains, in the high places, and then eventually it's brought down into Jerusalem itself. But that's one thing that God was saying, listen, guys, you got this backwards. Don't do this. This is not what it's for. And then we see that again here in the Fremen practice of worship. Drugs in worship. Various substances play significant roles in religious rituals practices in the Dune universe. Sappho is a stimulant used by mentats and the Bene Gesserit sisterhood to enhance their mental and physical abilities, enabling them to perform feats of mental control and manipulation. The water of life that I just spoke about is a potent and dangerous substance derived from drowned sandworm and is used in the Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother's initiation ritual, granting them heightened awareness and prescience and be able to hear from their mothers that had gone before them. So a lot of psychedelic stuff going on here too. A lot of psychic stuff that's involved. Nothing to do with science. This is mysticism. And finally, the spice melange, harvested from the sands of Arrakis, is revered as a substance with profound psychoactive properties, enhancing cognitive abilities, being able to see the future, being able to bend space and time to create time travel. Is essential to the economy and politics and spirituality of the Imperium. Yeah, drugs, sex, they're all a part of it.
And you can see that as the books continue, that he had the same view of sex as he did of religion or politics. Just a way to control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Primarily because it becomes a female-dominated society. That's the way they control the men, basically. Is through sex manipulation and control.
Yep. It all has to do with control and who has the power. Very, very dark society. And again, we are not saying this is the way to go, but you take God out of the equation and people kind of revert to these things. And this is a good point to say when you're talking to somebody about this movie.
Do you really want a society like this?
Exactly. If this is the ideal, this is the best you've got, let me show you an alternative, because this really, I've read the end of the book, the last book. It doesn't end well. This is not a good thing. This is not like the end of the Lord of the Rings where there is hope. You know, you have light. There's this. And even a better book, the Bible, how does that end? Real hope. Real hope. The tyranny, the scourge of humanity, sin has been conquered. Death has been conquered. And we have new life in him. Finally, worms in worship. The giant sandworms of Arrakis are viewed as divine beings of the Fremen who worship them as gods known as Shai-Hulud. The Fremen have a deep spiritual connection to the sandworms, believing them to be the source of life on Arrakis and the creators of the spice melange. These religious elements in Dune reflect Frank Herbert's exploration of themes in spirituality, power, ecology, and the human condition. And he gets it wrong.
Really? What a surprise. He's been right about so many things.
So
sorry, being really critical on that one, but yeah.
So I want to look at a couple of the comments here before we move on to the role of religion. And you've already mentioned it, and I think everybody else already sees it. And then we'll see one reason why Christianity is not in Dune. I will be listening while pressure washing today. Well,
that's interesting.
Good job. Hey, you know what? I don't know how many times I'll just put something on, listen to it. I'm doing work, and it really helps make the time pass. Also, recorded books and things like that too. This is fantastic. So hopefully we can help focus your mind a little bit as you walk through your day with your activities. The role of religion. Religion plays a central and pivotal, multifaceted role in Frank Herbert's Dune series, influencing characters, societies, and events throughout the narrative. Here are some key aspects of religion in Dune. Number one, religious motivation. What have we seen so far in religious motivation? How have people in Dune, in Frank Herbert's eyes, been motivated?
Power and control.
Okay. And what groups would you say that those are that have used religion as power and control?
Well, you have the Bene Gesserit. You have even the Pasha Emperor is using it in some way, although he seems to be more devoted than not. He's much more devoted than the Bene Gesserit. Of course, you have Paul Atreides, who uses it for his own means, and as soon as it becomes inconvenient for the Fremen to still be there, he just abandons them and moves on.
And it gets out of control too. He can't control it. The fervor that comes out of here too. So the Fremen's reverence for the desert planets, Arrakis, and the giant sandworms is another religious motivation. Like you said, the Bene Gesserits are using their Missionario Projectiva to manipulate people. How about the Sardaukar? How about them?
Sardaukar use a religious fervor as well as devotion to the emperor himself. Again, they come off of a prison planet. Basically, they're condemned there for a lifetime. It's a very harsh planet, and they are taken from that and turned into these elite warriors.
Right.
The concept down, at least Frank Herbert had the concept down, that harsh lifestyle leads to very capable warriors, which there is some truth to that.
Yes. So those capable warriors would be both those guys from the prison planet, Sardaukar, Seleucus Secundus, and also the Fremen, who are the desert warriors. And do we see that in real life?
What the harshness breeds?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
Character?
Yeah. So we look at
the potential, I should say.
The Vikings, the harsh environment that they had in Scandinavia with the harsh winters, being able to do what they did, and then creating the longboats that were gave them great passage all through the northern seas, down into the Mediterranean, down the Volga, down towards Constantinople, out leapfrogging over the islands to Greenland and then to Newfoundland. All across, they were able to conquer the hardship they had there. How about the Mongols?
The Mongols, yep, they were tribal and were able to expand quickly and fast using horsemen and archery.
Right, and they, as herdsmen, and on the tough conditions of the steppe, being able to live under those conditions, and life becomes a little less meaningful, I think, in those situations.
I think
because people die all the time.
I think that it breeds harshness,
yes.
And I think that's what leads to these brutal cultures coming out of that.
And you end up glorifying the warrior, the whole idea of Norse mythology, the glorification of the warrior. If you die, and you died well in battle, you go to Valhalla, and your ultimate, and that's only temporary because you end up just as a slight stayover. Ultimately, you get to go to Ragnarok, which is the big battle, and everybody wants that.
Yeah.
So
where everyone fights and everyone dies horribly.
Yeah.
Including the gods.
So all these, and then you finally come to the desert warriors of Arabia and the spread of Islam. Yes, and it was spread
by the sword,
and through trade and influence that way, but primarily
heavily by the sword,
and
slavery.
And that motif was used for the Fremen here in this book to take them forward. So religion was used as a means for a violent conquering, this jihad, this holy war that was done. So messianic themes. You have religious motivation, number one. Number two, messianic themes. Recurring theme in Dune with the character of Paul Atreides filling the role of the prophesied Messiah, the Kwisatz Haderach, Muad'Dib, the little mouse. He takes his role there in people's minds. So that has heavy religious connotations. Ecology environmentalism also has you can't make environmentalism a religion. There is no precedence for that whatsoever.
That's easy.
I've never seen that happen, especially in modern societies that may be, spacefaring. They're not gonna. Maybe I'm wrong. The worship of sandworms and spice. The worship of sandworm and spice melange by the Fremen reflects a deeper ecological environmental reverence in Dune. In some cases, the point of nature worship. Power and control. Number 4, the fourth one, religion is depicted as a political tool used to distract and appease the masses, with various factions using religious beliefs and institutions to manipulate others. And we've seen this across. It's just that
never works out well.
So this is the point. All that is backdrop to get to this point. Why is Christianity noticeably absent from the Dune universe? Because true Christianity, not ones that have been encumbered by going too far one direction or the other, or just looking specifically at certain aspects of beliefs for use as a point of political motivation. True Christianity does not fit in the Dune universe.
It's incompatible.
It's incompatible. It would not fit. So you say, where are the Christians here? They would go. Now, let me ask. We talked about Islam, Buddhism, maybe Baha'i faith, all kind of mixing together, maybe elements of Catholicism, maybe some elements of Christianity that's in there. Where's Judaism?
Nowhere.
It is.
It is?
It is. But
I didn't see it.
It was very small and mentioned only as some planet out there, you have this sect all by themselves. And they've been able to retain their religion and traditions. Wow. So they remained. And you can see through history too, the Jewish people have retained their traditions and their religion over time, despite persecution, despite being scattered, the diaspora still be able to hold on to this. And so Frank Herbert had this little pocket, very rarely mentioned. I think it maybe only mentioned once, that they're out there somewhere.
In spite of the Messiah actually coming.
Right.
In spite of all these things, in spite of all the prophecies being fulfilled in one. Yeah. In spite of all that, they still hold on.
Yep.
They're a bit stubborn.
Yes. So Christianity is notably absent. And there are some reasons behind this, other than not fitting. Creative choice by Frank Herbert. Maybe he doesn't like Christians. It's less controversial if he makes up a religion that no one follows. No one's going to be arguing with them that he did it wrong. And just say that this is historical context, that some point in the future you have Frank Herbert just says, they're all mixed together, and then Christianity is mixed into. Then why don't we really see any elements of core Christian tenets? Now, you'd say that also Islam.
A lot of their Islamic tenets aren't there.
Has been melted down too.
Now, you did have that video of them praying. I don't think that's in the book.
No.
So I don't remember them ever praying or participating in any sort of prayer.
I'd have to go
rituals.
back and reread and look just for that. Going
Again, the concept of Hajj, they didn't even have a holy site that they would go to. the concept of Muhammad being prophet, they didn't have that. So yeah, a lot of the core things that make Islam weren't there. They didn't even have a holy book.
Right. And that would have been, I was just thinking about that
They
they
don't even
would
have
have
the Quran.
had, right. The people of the
So-
book, the only book that you really have is this Orange Catholic Bible that is just basically taking all these holy books, throwing it in a blender, and then picking out the parts you like.
Yep. So again, not much of
Not
Islam
much.
there, but still have the brutal nature of it.
Adam said, it just occurred to me that the world thinks we worship God because they think we don't understand the world around us. Just like the worship of spice and worms, these are mysterious. I think, at least from the secular modern standpoint, I would say you're probably correct that there are some that would view Christians as being flat earthers, that we hold on to some
Archaic beliefs.
anti-scientific, archaic, like you said, first century or beyond, outdated beliefs that the scientific theory and method have long since proven wrong. But the closer that you look at it, that's not the case.
And the fact that science is kind of Christians.
Yeah, if you
A
look at
product of Christianity.
most Nobel Peace Prize winners are Christians. Most in the Enlightenment era, those people
Founders
who made the biggest breakthroughs were Christians. Isaac Newton was a Christian, and these people are Christians, not just in name only. So you go through and you see all these people that were part of that. Would be a good review to do. I think we should probably do.
See a couple of channels do it, but not to an extreme in-depth review, which would be good.
That would be good. So here, that's a good segue to talk about this Thursday. We're going to be looking at myths and lies. Specifically, what there was a time when skeptics would look at the Bible and say, "What? Jericho? That just made up. There was no Jericho that you're talking about. It's a different wrong location. Nineveh, there is no Nineveh." And all these different places.
Canaanites, they didn't exist.
Right. We already covered the Hittites
Oh, Hittites.
last week, about how that was said that did not even exist at any time. And here, lo and behold, you can
Major
now
nation.
learn their language in major institutions. Was it Cambridge that we looked at last week? I
think it
went
was
to their
Harvard.
website and we saw Harvard. Yes, Harvard. Went to their website and you can look. There it is. You can learn all about it. There were other occasions where that was true too, with cities that were founded and then said they didn't exist. Archaeology pulled it up, and lo and behold, the Bible was correct. So
Which is interesting because in Islam, that's the opposite of what we see.
How so?
We're seeing more and more archaeological evidence that might contradict what the Quran and the Hadith say.
That's a good point.
To the point of where there are some researchers now questioning if Muhammad actually ever truly existed
Wow.
as an individual himself.
Wow.
So there are some questions out there on where Islam came from, if it was just a manufactured religion built off of lies to begin with.
Okay.
A lot more lies than I originally assumed.
I could see that. So we're going to look at the archaeology and take see what that brings forward. And does archaeology bring any better light onto how we would interpret Scripture, how we would look at different cultures back then, and seeing different verses and different passages in the light of that culture. So if you've enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, and share. And I've enjoyed our discussion here with you guys. And we next Thursday, man, if you can join us, that'd be fantastic.
Right.
Tonight, 8:00 or 6:00
EST.
Yes, Eastern Standard Time. The Council of Absurdia revisited, followed by talking about the Council of Nicaea. Looking forward to that. I think that's going to be a fantastic one. Until then, see you guys then.